Do you want to be more expressive?
Yeah.
It's something you could do right now, today. Where in your life would you like to be more expressive most?
Piano.
You're strengthening the story that says it is dangerous.
Piano is not dangerous. I would consider myself pretty expressive. There's a lot of different ways you could be expressive. You can be really loud, or you can be really soft. Today I wanted to talk about how to express yourself on the piano. Yes, expression is very, very important. You don't want to look like a rock when you're playing the piano. You don't want to look like a robot playing the piano, and you definitely don't want to bore people while you're playing the piano. There are a couple of things that I've learned about expression in piano, and I wanted to relate some of these things to you guys in a very concrete way. I've heard it all with expression, you know, they say, oh, just move your body kind of like this, and yeah, you kind of do have to move your body to be expressive, but there's a little bit more than just moving your body like this, you know? Then I've heard it said that people say, oh, just play your piece as if the sunrise is just coming out of the clouds on a beautiful sunny day. Does anyone know what these people are talking about? And then the turtle just walks on the rock and then the flower just opens up. The clouds part. These abstract concepts got me really confused. Yeah, that doesn't help. Sometimes I need a little bit more concrete information, you know? Because I don't want to be boring my audience. I know sometimes it looks like classical music is just effortless, but actually there is a lot of thought that goes into it. And so I'm going to relay some of those thoughts to you right now. So if you're interested, keep watching.
Allow yourself to share more.
I'm going to be discussing Chopin's Opus 10, number 3, one of his etudes, and try to relate to you some of these details about how to become more expressive in your piano playing. To begin, we need to talk about why expression is so important on the piano, and it begins with this guy named Cristofori who developed the piano. He was actually a harpsichord maker, and the harpsichord was basically a piano, but when you pressed a note, instead of a hammer hitting a string, it was a plucking device. So every time you had the same volume produced by the strings, it wasn't like you could press slow and then produce a softer sound, or press faster and produce a louder sound. There was no such thing as like dynamic gradation, differentiation in your loudness or softness. But when the piano was invented, all of a sudden hammers were inserted into the instrument, and now we can produce different variation of sound and produce different colors. Like instead of just red, now we have light pink, medium pink, hot pink, crimson, I don't know, burnt red. I don't even know if that's a color. But basically, you know what I'm saying. We can create different colors on the piano through different techniques on how we approach speed of touching the notes. And so that's how I wanted to introduce this lesson. So when I'm looking at this first couple of measures, I see 3 different lines. I see this. And if you really were astute in paying attention, I actually played one note louder than the other. Da, 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 da. But everything is still pretty soft. And then I layer it with this. And that is also pretty soft because I'm tapping those notes very lightly, not very fast at all. Now when I combine them, it's like this. And you can hear the different touches relating with each other. Now when I add that soaring melody, that's kind of what they're saying about the rainbow thing over the mountain. It's usually some sort of a melody, or when they say the pebble is falling into the still water, it's usually the melody that's causing all of this, I don't know, imagination. So this right here, to make it more concrete for you to understand what these people are saying about the pebble, well, it's usually you're just playing your melody a little bit louder. And by by the way, sorry, my piano is a little bit out of tune before you comment. All right, but basically play this a little bit louder. And when you're playing this melody, you want your touches to be pretty consistent. Like if you're playing at this speed, you don't want to all of a sudden like go from, you know what I mean? You don't want so much differentiation. You want it to be pretty consistent. So if you're going to hit it at a certain speed, you want to keep that speed. And if you do want to change it, you know, as the ebb and flow of the volume of the melody, maybe do it like 2% more or 2% less. You don't want any drastic changes because that can be pretty jarring to the ear. Now, when we combine all of this, that creates that rainbow that everyone's talking about. Let's talk about that section. So we basically had 3 measures. So I'm noticing that there's this idea of repeating something 3 times. And usually when you have something repeated 3 times, you really pay attention. It's like, hey, clean your room. Hey, clean your room. Hey, clean your room. And then you know you're really in trouble, right? You better clean your room. So this idea of repeating something 3 times, I want to do some sort of a crescendo. And also, by that end of the 3rd time they told you to clean your room, I noticed that in this last measure, even the texture of the measure got much more texture. So instead of like having this, all of a sudden I went from 1 note to 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. Right? The texture got a lot louder. So now I can really beef that measure up. So I'm also going to do it gradually. So I'm going to scale everything at the same rate of finger touch, basically. So I'm going to start out slower. And by slower, I don't mean like the actual tempo is slower. I mean, I'm hitting these hammers slower to produce a little bit of a softer sound. Then I'm scaling everything up. And then by this 3rd one, I'm hitting them a little bit harder and a little bit more with arm, I guess. And also, not only am I going to hit with a little bit more arm, I'm also going to slow down the tempo. The thing about dynamics and expression is sometimes it's not even about loud versus soft. Yes, it somewhat is, but sometimes you can make your louds and softs more interesting by your tempo changes. And this is interesting because I think of it as if, you know, you're carrying something light. Like let's say I'm carrying this pen, right? I'm carrying this pen. Oh, I can go really fast, right? But all of a sudden, if I start carrying this, you know, it's like, oh, things are getting a little bit heavy. And then all of a sudden, if I have to carry like a bunch of books, I'm like, oh, it's so heavy. I have to slow down, you know? So I think of it like this. This is very easy to play. So I can go a little bit faster. Then it starts getting heavy. It's like, oh, it's so heavy. I have to slow down for this loud volume. You know what I mean? So we have this. And notice what I did. I'm not going to hold that all the way. I'm going to let my pedal do all the heavy lifting. And let go of that chord, okay? So it looks like I'm holding on, but if you pay attention really, the camera can't see, but I actually let go, but I just keep my fingers there in place, but I'm not actually holding on for dear life like it looks. And now watch this. That's all that sound, right? And here's the pebble that everyone's talking about. And I'm going to do it like this. And that's what everyone's talking about. That's still water, and then you're breaking it up. And now watch this. bubble. There it is. Okay, this brings us to my next section of the piece, and I wanted to talk about making your softer softer, your softer softer, your soft softer, and your louds louder. And this can create a more interesting crescendo. So basically, when you're doing crescendos, you don't want to start from loud getting louder. That's not as big of an impact. When you're doing a crescendo, you need to make your soft really soft so that it gives the idea that you're having some sort of a contrast. Now that section is the coolest because it has 3 different crescendos. It's kind of like similar to that thirds one we did earlier, but this one I made sure to make my softs really soft. And then getting louder. Let me get the right notes. Ha ha. So we have this really soft, really soft, really soft. And that's as loud as I'm gonna go. Then I turn it softer. And now that is a little bit louder than the first time. So I'm scaling it up every time. So the first loud was kind of like this. The second loud was a bit more. And now that third one, it's going to be really, really loud. So how am I going to get really, really loud? By starting really, really soft. And I'm going to keep that soft for a little bit more time since this is way longer of a passage. I don't want to get immediately loud by like the third note because then the rest of it is going to be so obnoxiously loud. And also I want to make sure that I'm hitting my pinky faster because I really want this. You know, I don't want all the other stuff. I really want my melody, the pebble, to soar. So we have this. Do you see, even by like the 5th note, I'm still soft? If I could get right now. And that last, like the last 3 notes, I make boom, boom, boom. And that will give you your crescendo molto. Also, by going a little bit faster as if you're running towards it, that can also be a good idea. And then maybe you can run, right? You can get a little bit faster, but not too much, right? You don't want to have too much seasoning on your salting or whatever. You don't want to have too much, just a little bit, and then you can slow down by those last 3 notes. So we have this. And then, to make things really interesting, you saw how I did that. That's what everyone's talking about. Did you notice what I did? I totally changed the mood. I was at like this big thing, and then I changed the mood by changing my pedal, releasing all that drama. Of course, Chopin notates this. So a lot of these things, I'm not just making this up out of thin air, right? Chopin literally says, change your pedal right here. And he did that on purpose. So a lot of these expression things, it's not accidental. You just have to really follow the instructions. Here's the thing about classical music. A lot of people say, I don't like classical music because I don't feel like I can really express myself. I don't feel creative. I feel that, I'm limited by all these rules. That is true to an extent. However, nobody told you how to make that crescendo. No one told you how loud you should get. No one told you how fast you should get. No one told you how long you should stay on this, right? You can't just automatically do that by following the instructions. There is a certain element of this is different every time I play it. Every time I play it, it's always a little bit different. So I kind of don't really agree with the fact that classical music is not creative because you really kind of do have to be creative on how you're approaching these louds and softs and these tempo changes. It kind of is an art in itself, knowing like how gradual you should make things, or, you know, you really do have to think about these things. If I had to summarize everything I just said, I would say that being intentional with how hard you're playing certain lines really matters. Keeping that melody steady all the way. You don't want it to be like, right? You want it to be consistent. If you're playing it at a certain hardness, you need to maintain that hardness and scale it up like 2% or scale it down 2%. I would say tempo changes are really important for ideas in expression, to highlight certain information that needs to, you know, slow down so that everyone can say, oh, she's doing something different. Making your softs softer, your louds louder, so that crescendos are more noticeable. And that's about it. And obviously, I probably talked about more than that, but that's just a quick summary of what I think is most important. All right, let's jump back. Hey everybody, hope you guys enjoyed that video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. I always love reading what you guys have to say. Please like, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bubble, all the things that YouTubers say. It really helps out my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye everybody. I don't see anything here.